very well, Audrey. Do you have any question? Do you want to ask something? You can ask, please.
Yeah, actually, just the general question. So, for the contract, for under the upstream, right? For the contract, is it under part of that the sourcing license or is a separate license?
No, that is a part of separate license. It's not the part
Contract
of sourcing
management.
license. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
That is separate license. Even sourcing is basically representing your the upstream license. Okay. So when basically you will purchase any of the sourcing that means upstream license, you will get that this URL. So this sourcing is basically representing. Okay, one second. Let me share my screen.
oh.
Okay, so whenever you will purchase any of the license, you will get this sourcing URL. So sourcing URL basically is representing your upstream license. So whatever modules you have in upstream, like you can say sourcing, or you can say contract, or you can say SLP. So all those are available here, in the sourcing. So but yeah, that is basically different license.
Oh, it's a separate license. Even
Yes.
though right now, yeah, oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Now in today's session, we'll start our solutions topic, and there we will discuss that about Ariba solutions, and as part of the Ariba solutions. So basically, we'll start our journey from this upstream part. So this is basically the Ariba solutions that Ariba is offering to customer, and we'll talk first about upstream part, and there we'll discuss first about supplier solutions. Then we will go to the next sourcing solutions. Then we'll talk about contract, P2P, and the catalog part. So we'll go step by step process here. That's something we'll discuss in the regular session, in coming session as well. But yeah, in today's session, we'll talk about the supplier part first. So as part of the supplier, the Ariba is offering this supplier solutions to customer to manage their supply. So whatever different that activity or whatever different options the customer they are expecting from supplier perspective, that basically options are available in SAP Ariba as a part of the supplier solutions. So basically that for the supplier solutions, Ariba has given the two different module to customer. One module is that called as SIPM, and second module is is the SLP. So even though there are two modules like SIPM and the SLP, but as of now, if you go for any of the new implementations, so we always have to work with the SLP solutions, SLP module. So we do not have to work with the SIPM module. Sorry, we don't have to implement the SIPM module. We have to always implement the SLP module. But in some certain cases, you are going to work in the support project. So in support project, you may see in some cases you have to work with the SIPM module as well as with the SLP modules as well. Okay, so now thing is that why the SIPM is not available for the new implementation, and why basically it is available only for support, and in case of the SLP we can work as support and implementation. So that's something is fine. So what happens, SIPM module is not available now. So SAP has retired this SIPM module now, and instead of the SIPM module, Ariba has given the new module that is basically the SLP module. So as a consultant, we should know the basics of the SIPM, like what is basically SIPM module, and we also have to understand about the SLP as well, like what is the SLP module. And we have to understand why SAP has retired this SIPM module. That's something also we should know, and why SAP has given that new module of the SLP. So as a Ariba consultant, we should know the basic process of the SIPM and the SLP as well. Why? So whenever you have to work in any of the support project, and if you don't know how SIPM looks like, so looks like basically that's something, yes, we cannot see here as well. But yeah, at least if you don't know how the SIPM works, or whatever that options are available in the SIPM, what was the limitation in the SIPM, and why SLP came in the picture. So if you don't know about the basic, that's something will be problem. And even sometimes during interview, you may get this type of questions as well about SIPM and about the SLP. Okay, so first we'll try to understand about this SIPM module, and we'll try to understand about the SLP as well, and we'll also try to find out the answers like why SIPM is retired and why the SAP has given the new modules at the SLP as well. Okay, that's something we'll discuss. So to understand this, first we have to discuss about that we should know the process flow of this the SIPM. So if you see in SIPM process, so whenever we have to create any of the supply record in the SIPM, so we have to basically follow this process. So what process basically we have to follow? So as part of the supplier, like manage supplier, we have to first create supplier in our SAP Ariba, like in the SAPM solutions. And once you create the supplier in the in the SAPM, then basically we have to approve the suppliers as well. So basically the supplier agent, like the junior person or the person user who will have the supplier agent role, they have to basically create the supplier. And once they will create the supplier, it should go to that to manager to approve the supplier. And after this approval, system creates the supplier number. And after that, we have to basically create supplier user ID. In third step, we have to create supplier user ID. So they are basically we have to create a kind of SAP user ID for the supplier, and later we have to basically initiate the supplier registration. So this is basically the next step we have to follow, and in the next basically we supplier has to perform the registration. So this activity we have to perform as part of the supplier onboarding in this SAPM solutions or in the SAP Ariba solutions as well. Apart from this, so if from customer point of view, we have some other the requirement as well. So like let's say customer, they want to maintain like supplier qualification as well. They want to qualify a supplier for some specific requirement. So that also customer they have to perform. So they can perform here. They can create the supplier qualification. And apart from this, sometimes customers they are expecting some other activities as well to manage the supplier. That basically is called as a preferred supplier. So they want to identify a supplier as a preferred supplier. So this is basically the customer requirement. So now this was the process basically we have to follow in the SIPM. Now thing is that what is the challenges here in the SIPM that we have to understand. So now if you see creating the supplier, that is fine. So we can basically collect some supplier information, supplier record, and we have to basically create the supplier in this SIP module, that is fine. And but after this it should go to approval as well. So approval is also fine. Like we can go for, we can basically, we are expecting to have the approval process as well, because that's something is important, and even it's a part of the compliance as well. So that is fine. But now many of the customers they raise his concern about this create supplier user ID. So many of the customers they raise this concern to Ariba company, like Ariba team, why unnecessary we have to create supplier user ID in our system. So whatever system we are using, that supplier is not the part of our company employee, right? And we are not going to provide any access or any authorization to supplier. So why unnecessary we have to create supplier user ID in the system? And even creating the supplier user guide ID is not very quick. We cannot do in fraction of second itself. So for that we have to spend sometimes, like we have to maintain at least, we have to spend 4 to 5 minutes. Then only we'll able to create supplier user ID. So why we have to do like this? What is the reason? That's something basically many of the customer they raise their concern. So this is the requirement of basically to creating a supplier user ID was to initiate the supplier registration. So if a customer they want to initiate supplier registration process over the Ariba network, so for that they have to basically create the supplier user ID in the Ariba. Okay. Anyhow, so since the customer they have implemented the SIPM solutions, and this is something the process of the SAP Ariba, so they are following that part. So after this, they have to initiate the supplier registration. So how basically they have to initiate, that's something we'll talk in some time. So they have to initiate supplier registration from the buyer point of view, and in the next supplier has to perform the registration activity. So this is something overall process customer has to follow as part of the supplier onboarding. Apart from this, customer have some other requirement as well to manage their supplier. So what is basically other requirement? Other requirement is that they have to basically manage the supplier, and they have to maintain supplier qualification. Now let's say for example, we have one supplier, like we can take the example of this that Apple. So Apple is also a supplier for us because we are the customer. Yeah. Now let's assume we are going to do some business with Apple. So what basically we'll do, we have to create the supplier, like Apple supplier record in our system. So we have to create Apple supplier record in our system. We have to it will go for the approval. We have to create supplier user ID, and we have to perform the registration activity as well over the Ariba network. Right. Now I want to maintain, as a customer, we want to maintain this Apple supplier as a qualified supplier. So in SIPM, whenever we have to maintain the Apple supplier as a qualified supplier, so in that case, we have to create the different document itself, or we can say we have to basically create the different project itself. So that means to manage one supplier, we have to create one project to perform this process. This is basically called as the supplier onboarding. And again, if you want to manage the same supplier in the other way, like to maintain the qualification process, so in that case, we have to basically create another project from the scratch. That is again the time-taking activity, because again we have to create the documents from the scratch, provide all the information, then only we'll able to perform the supplier qualification, right? So this is also one challenging activity in the SAPM. So we have to spend some other times to perform the supplier qualification process. Now apart from this, customer have the other requirements as well. So they have the requirement to maintain the supplier as the preferred. So for some supplier, they want to identify as preferred supplier. So if they want to maintain the preferred supplier activity in the SAPM, so these options was not available in the SAPM. So this is something, it's not available in the SAPM. We have the option only up to the supplier qualification. So these are basically the processes the customer they have to follow. So many of the customers, they raise his concern to Ariba, and Ariba team, they have basically utilized they have analyzed that customer issues or that reported part, and they find out yes, in the SAP module, so they have the option to simplify the SAPM solutions as well. Even some of the process the customers they are performing that is basically not useful, and they can simplify this SAPM solutions, and they can basically release that new latest version or something new updated version for the SAP. So SAP Ariba company, they have basically analyzed these solutions, and they find out they have the scope to perform that to simplify the process, and they have basically simplified the SAPM modules, SAPM solutions as well. But after that, they have not released any upgrade version of the SAPM. So they thought to decide to retire the SAPM module, and instead of the SLP module, they have released that new module that is basically the SLP module. So SLP basically is stand for this supplier lifecycle and performance management. So now SLP it came in the picture instead of the SAPM. And if you see the process of this SLP, basically, so in the SLP we have to follow the process. Basically, we have to create supplier request, and then we have to it will go for the approval of the supplier request. After that, we have to basically initiate supplier registration, and next supplier registration activity, then supplier qualification and the preferred supplier. So if you just compare this process of this SAPM and SLP, so SLP process is making more sense. How? So here we can see we have the create supplier request option, right? So as a business user, as a end user, or as a junior, what I can do basically, since my request is going for the approval, right? So that means I can raise the request. I cannot create data directly. I can raise the request, for example, purchase requisition, right? So purchase requisition is a kind of request for the purchasing. So once purchase requisition will get approved, then only we'll able to create the purchase order. Otherwise, if our supervisor or manager, they will decline, they will deny this our purchase requisition, will not be able to proceed purchasing activities. Right. So as compared to this statement, I create supplier, this create supplier request is making the more sense, right? And apart from that, approval of the supplier request, that is same as it is in as the SAPM, and in the next initiate supplier registration. So in between of that, in the SAPM we have the option to create supplier user ID, and since it was a necessary activity, that is why Ariba has removed this step, and instead of the this creating supplier user ID, they have given the option directly that we can initiate the supplier registration. And once we initiate supplier registration from buyer point of view, so supplier receive notification, they have to perform this registration activity. And after that, if customer they want to perform that supplier the supplier qualification process, they can also perform. So in the same project, they can do supplier qualification activity, and also if they want to perform the preferred supplier, they can do the preferred supplier as well. So overall, the Ariba has given, with the help of the SLP module, Ariba has given the 365-degree view to the customer. That means customer, they can see all the information from which location, from which point the customer they want to see the information, they can basically see. It's up to them. Okay. So this is something overview about SLP and the SIPM. So now in the next, we'll go to in the system and we'll see so basically SLP will be in our scope because SIPM is a retired module. So just only for information purpose, we discussed about the SIPM because as a Ariba consultant, we should know, but we will see the process flow of the SLP. So before going ahead in the system, is there any question from anyone?
It's this created by vendor request. How we create in XK01, like the same method we'll create a supplier in Ariba.
Yes, right.
Same method, na?
Yes.
Means we'll get the
Like
request
not
from
same
the
method.
vendor. New
No, not same method. So basically, okay, let's park this question because in the next we're going to talk about the same process itself. So let's park this question, like that question, that your question will automatically be answered in some time. So there's no point to discuss on that part. Do you have any question here?
Yeah, I have a question. So that the supplier qualifications, right, is after I register. I mean the supply. I mean, like, shouldn't it be like during the request, right? Then I will do the qualifications of the supplier before I register the supplier in the system. I mean,
Okay.
is this that the process that we have to follow?
Yes, this is the process. This is basically best practice we have to follow. But what you are saying, like during creating the supplier request, if you want to do supplier qualification process, we can't.
Hmm. You can't.
No.
Oh,
Why?
okay. Hmm.
Okay, let me give a basic, simple example. Even we thought to we supposed to discuss about that part as well. So let me tell you, this example. So what is basically supplier qualification? Any idea what could be supplier qualification? Anyone?
Supplier performance, maybe star, 5-star, 3-star, like that.
No. Performance basically that means after delivery, after purchasing, you are going to measure the supplier activity, supplier performance. That is called as a supplier performance, or we can say supplier service.
Supplier
Okay.
qualifications, I'm thinking is more of like reviewing that the supplier maybe that does like credibility or whatever, right? Are they able to perform, like are they even able to supply all those?
Hmm. Okay, let me tell you. So in backend SAP system, we have two terms, regular vendor and the fixed vendor. You both are aware about this regular vendor and the fixed vendor. So we have two term like in our backend SAP a regular vendor and the fixed vendor, right?
Sorry, I did not catch that. Can you repeat? Sorry, you're saying?
Okay, in our SAP we have the two option, regular vendor and the fixed vendor. I
Regular
think
one-time vendor, one-time
Oh,
and the regular.
no,
oh,
no,
okay.
no. Regular, we have that
Huh?
option like in this info record and even in the source list as well. We have the option we can maintain regular vendor. We can maintain the checkbox in the info record, but in source list we can maintain the checkbox of this fixed vendor.
Yeah, your regular vendor and your preferred vendor, right?
Fixed vendor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is basically regular vendor? So regular vendor means so when basically we are selecting the regular vendor checkbox. So it does not means like when you have created the supplier record and in with the help of SK01 or MK01, and you have also maintained this that info record as well, and directly you will choose this supplier as a that regular vendor. No. So what basically we are doing first, so after creating the supplier record, so creating the supplier record is basically the part of the supplier onboarding process. For example, you have to purchase any product. So what you will do basically, you will first investigate in the market or you will investigate like who are the supplier who can supply this particular item to you, right? So that information basically that's something you will find out the supplier. Now let's assume you have identified like we have that around 50 supplier, 50 supplier or 100 supplier, and those suppliers can supply this particular item to us, right? But you are not sure like that this supplier will qualify our requirement or not. So as part of supplier onboarding, first what you will do basically, you will create the vendor record in our SAP MM. Right. So once you create the vendor record, so in the next, what you will do, you can go ahead with the quotation activity. So you will create a quotation request like a RFQ, and you will invite that particular supplier by asking them, I want to purchase this particular item. Can you please provide your best quotation or best price to us? So whatever the requirement you have, so for example, you have the requirement like I'm looking some supplier who can provide the best price. I'm looking a supplier who can offer me 24/7 customer services. I'm looking a supplier who can provide me 1 year guarantee or warranty or refund option. This is our requirement from customer point of view. Now you have invited 20 supplier for the quotation activity. So if out of 20 supplier, which supplier is meeting your requirement. So that supplier you are saying, like that suppliers qualify your requirement. That means that supplier become your qualified supplier, or in general word we can say that is your supplier qualification step. Right. So until unless you will not perform this, like that in quotation activity with the supplier, you don't know either this supplier will be qualified, our requirement or not. Or let me just simplify this example. Yeah, like we can take the example of the interview process, right? So whenever we are planning for any of job change, so what basically we are doing, we are just doing some apply. We are submitting our application in different that implementation partner company or different company, right? We are applying for the job. Even we are also getting some calls to for the job as well. So they are asking me, please send your CV, please send your updated resume. We will check and we will update you or we'll schedule the interview, right? So what basically we are doing, we are sending our CV. Based on that, they are basically conducting one level 1 interview. So up to the level 1, they are not sure like you will qualify or interview or not, or even you are also not sure like I will qualify that our company interview or not, right? So until unless you will not clear the interview of the level 1, you can't say you have qualified the interview. But once you qualify the interview, like at the level 1, and you are getting the call for next level, so you can say like you have qualified, right? And even from the company point of view as well, you will receive the call like you have cleared the first level interview. That means you qualified that one. Now we have to go to the level 2. So this is called as the basically supplier qualification process from supplier point of view. Am I making some sense here?
Yeah, okay, got it. So, yeah.
Follow the
All right.
process like that, RFQ process like that, you will follow before getting the vendor register qualification.
Yes. So and without that, how you came to know like this supplier will be qualified or not?
You will follow the rule procedure. First, you take the vendor details, everything, and you do your level qualification. Your procedure will follow.
Right. Okay. Anyway, just that park this all these questions like ordering. So all the questions will be answered shortly, and when we'll see in the system, then basically we'll talk about these different processes as well, and we'll talk about different concept as well, and then basically we'll discuss in detail.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to in the system now, and in the system, we'll see how basically we have to create supply request. So for this, basically we have to log in the our Ariba solutions, and once you come in the Ariba solutions, then basically we have to come here in the create menu, and from the create menu we have to choose this option of this supply request. So here we can see you will have the supply request. Where is that? Just a moment. Let me click on the more. Okay, here it is available. So we have to basically choose this option of the supply request from the create menu. And once you choose the supply request, then system will give you one form. So whatever form basically we can see in our screen, this is a kind of, we can say, word form. So word form, like whenever we have to collect some information, or might be you may see that in some while applying some info, some attending some webinar or attending some other meetings. So sometimes in they are asking to fill the form, right? And if you open the form, so that form will be like a kind of word form. So we have to basically provide the basic information. That's it, right? So this is also like the supply request form is also a kind of that word form, and we have the flexibility, we can customize this form. So whatever customization you want to do from your customer point of view, you can basically do. It's up to you whatever field information you want to keep here, or it's up to you whatever field information you want to remove from this form. It's up to you. That basically you can do. So that is why if you see this form from customer to customer, you will have the different information here. So like here in this case, we can see we have supplier name, legal supplier name, contact first name, contact last name, contact email, phone number, vendor type, account group, domestic vendor or foreign vendor, supplier info, main address information, category, region, business unit. So these are the information are available here. So this is basically the customer specific information. So from this customer point of view, they would like to collect only this information. But if you see from other customer point of view, so might be they will expect some other information as well. So whatever different field information they want to collect, that basically we can collect So we can design this form accordingly. So in nutshell, we can say this form is a completely customizable, and we can customize based on our requirement itself. Okay.
Sir, can you tell
So now,
how you go, sir? How you go to that supplier request from once you show me, sir?
okay. So basically, whenever we have to go in the supplier, oh, no problem. I'll show you. Okay, just one question. So do you guys have the system access? Ganesh, you have?
Oh no, I have to take.
What about Audrey?
Yes, I received that the request. I mean, I received that login details today.
Okay,
I
please
have.
check that because you received the site access, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, please check that because so like do the practice. Practice basically is very important. Okay. All right. So when basically, so we have to come here. So you have to go in the create menu, and from create menu, you will have the option here, supplier request. Here we can see the option of the supplier request. Or
Okay,
in certain
okay.
cases, you may not be able to see supplier request option. Then we have to click on the more, and if you click on the more, you will able to find out the supplier request option. Okay. So now when we
Okay,
click
thanks.
on this supplier request, then system will give you that form and whatever information that basically you received, like sorry, whatever that information that basically we have to collect from that our customer point of view, those information we have to basically fill up in this form. So again, I'm repeating, we are not going to talk about field by field because this is not the label or to talk about the field by field, like what is this field, what is this field. Why? Because as I told you, this is customer specific and you can design, you can basically configure this form as per your requirement. So might be if you see like your system or outreach system, so she may have the different information here, right? So that is basically thing. So whatever information that you want to collect, accordingly we can configure this form, we can include that particular field here. And this activity basically that from customer point of view, that supplier agent they have to do. So to perform this activity we need supplier agent role, supplier agent authorization, and based on that you will able to see this information, and we have to fill up this form and we have to submit it. So now what I will do basically, I will fill up this form and we'll try to submit this form and we'll see how it works. So I'll give some supplier name here. So let's say I'm going to give some supplier name, like
So this
for
will
example,
done by customer, na sir? This done by custom. Supplier send a request, so you are filling in your customer, you are onboarding him.
yes, yes, yes. This is done by the customer. This is basically the customer solution.
Okay.
So whatever activity we have to do, that something will be done by this customer itself. Again, if you want to automate, you can automate as well. It's up to you. So different options are available that basically you can automate. So sometimes in some customer you may see, like for example, let's say we can take the example of the Honda, right, or Coca-Cola. These are basically very big organization, and many of the suppliers they are basically working or associated with this organization, right? And if this activity will be carried out by this Coca-Cola employee or Honda employee, so basically they have to that allocate different resources here. Okay, so what basically they are doing, so sometimes they are doing some automation process. So what they are doing, so same form, like whatever form we can see here, and this form basically they attached on their website, or so if you go to that particular website, so it's not like that I'm just giving some hypothetical example for understanding. It's not like real only. So they will attach in their website, like please click here to onboard with us to continue our supply, to continue the business with us, something like that. They will give the link, and supplier they have to basically navigate to that that company or customer website. From there they have to fill up the form. So whatever information you can see here, same information will also be available in that form as well, what the customer they attached in that their website, and supplier has to provide all this information, and then they have to click on the submit. So once they will come, they will click on the submit. So with the help of the integration, that's something mechanism we have to implement here. System will automatically generate the supplier information in the system. That means same form will automatically be replicate in your Ariba, and the supplier request will automatically be created. So these options are also available. Of course, this requires some technical configuration as well. But yes, based on the requirement, we can also achieve. We can do this part.
So that need some development, is it not like by standard I can just send the request form to the supplier, ask him to fill it in and auto populate?
That we can do, yes.
I mean that is standard or need development?
No. That is not a standard development. That is basically on development. If you want to do, we can do.
Oh, okay.
That's not a standard. All right. So now what we'll do, we'll fill up this form. Seems like so some basic information we have to fill up here. And one more thing. So here we can see this field, basically some of the fields are mandatory, some of the fields are optional here. So we can see this field supplier name is seems mandatory. Like we can see we have something like that different identification here. So based on this identification, we can say these fields are mandatory and some of the fields are optional. So these are field basically the optional. So if you want to provide optional field information, you can provide, or else if you want to enter only mandatory information, that's something also you can enter and you can proceed your process. So let's click this form basically. So I'll try to give some that information here. So here it is asking supplier name, and I'll give some supplier name here, like let's say DN, or I'll try to give something different name basically, like SP Corporation. And okay, one more thing here. So what happens, we can see once we enter this supplier name here, now we can see system is giving some message to you, and we can see here we have some information like 3 more potential duplicates were found. So so while creating the supplier request, Ariba is also checking some duplicate supplier information as well. So what happened, let's say I'm the business user, I'm the part of this purchasing department or supplier onboarding team, and I'm trying to create one purchase requisition or purchase order in the Ariba, and I'm looking one particular supplier. And due to some reason, I'm unable to find out that particular supplier. So might be their supplier is deleted, deleted means basically that is deactivated, or their supplier basically I forget, it's not available in front of the system. Okay, so in that case, I realize that this supplier seems not available in the system. So might be we have not created or we forgot to create. So what I will do, I'll come in the system and I'll try to create this supplier here. So once you enter this information about supplier name, and not only with the supplier name, even with the other information as well, like contact name, first name, contact last name, and in contact email as well. So what system will do? System will validate this information in the database, and system will try to check like is there any other supplier is available with the same name, or might be not exact word with some potential word as well. So is there any supplier is available who is matching with the supplier? If yes, then system will give you this information like about the duplicate supplier. So basically system is trying to indicate you, or system is trying to provide this information to you, like this supplier might be already created in your system. So please review the duplicate supplier, and after that if you want to continue, you can continue. This is not a e-chapter basically, this is just only for your information purpose. But please review this duplicate supplier information. Might be you are looking the same supplier, and if the same supplier is available in database, so in that case you can ignore supplier request part, you can proceed further. Otherwise, if you are thinking that is not the exact supplier what you are trying to create, and in that case you want to proceed to the creation part, that's something also you can do. So this is basically called as the duplicate supplier check. So in SAP Ariba by default, or even if you want to control it, we can do as well. So by default, duplicate supplier check is enabled, and while creating the supplier, system will check like about the duplicate supplier, like either the same supplier is available or not. Okay, so same thing we can see here as well. It is showing here 3 potential duplicates were found based on the information suppliers provided. Now, if you want to see duplicates, we have to click on the see duplicates here. And once you click, and we have some information like these are the suppliers, that something is available here. So now we can see here, like this supplier name is something HP Pavilion Europe, this supplier is something CF Test HP printer, and this supplier is the HP supplier. And the system is also giving you this match score as well. So how much score, like what is the matching score is available. So this supplier is matching 39%, this supplier is 36.19, and this supplier is 36.15. So based on that, you can review and you can think, oh, is this the same supplier which I'm going to create? Might be you're trying to create like the HP supplier, right? But now we can see HP supplier is already available. So why unnecessary we have to create the request again? What I will do, I'll click on the cancel request and I'll continue my work with the same supplier. Okay. Otherwise, if you are thinking, no, this is not the supplier which I'm expecting, I want to create different supplier. So in that case, I'll click on the close. That means I'll close this like that warning message, and I will try to create the new supplier here. So I will come here and we'll like the continue our request, and we will provide some information here like that. Okay, so I will continue this like activity. So now in the next we have the legal supplier name. That something is optional. I will skip. And in the next we have the contact first name. I'll give something HP, and a contact last name. I'll give something LLC. All right. Now in the next we have to provide the contact email basically. So this contact email is very important. So generally we have to provide like so we have to provide that like correct email address here, like in this production system. But since we are doing this activity in our test site, so like so that is why like basically we have to provide some dummy email address here. Even whenever you will do your practice, so during doing the practice, please do not like that enter your personal email address, because this will be visible to other like other users as well who have the access of like your site. So it is recommended always try to use some dummy email address. Dummy email address means we can create some dummy email address on Gmail, Ymail, Rediffmail, Hotmail, or whatever. Okay, so we have to give one
Sir,
dummy email address here.
yeah, sir, it is in cloud now. It means database specific is not there. Means cloud. If Apple is there already, vendor means if I create Apple, it won't accept.
This is the specific database. This database is basically your customer specific. Even though this is the cloud, platform is the cloud, but whatever database you are purchasing, that is your part.
For my
For
database
example,
only.
yes. For example, Flipkart. Flipkart is also cloud, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you are subscribing, so that is your database. Whatever information you added, your card number, pin code, that something is available only in your database.
Okay, even though it's cloud, Apple is there. Once again, I have to create my in our my database. I have to create that vendor.
Yes. You have to create.
Okay.
Sorry, I just now I missed that part. Why do we need to enter a dummy email address, not the actual email address?
No. This is something like only for a practice. So whenever you will do the practice in the demo site, this is demo site. This is test site.
Oh, okay.
And this site you will also use, and Ganesh will also use, I will also use. So whatever my personal email address I will add here, and like Audrey will able to see. So she came to know like, oh, Bikram has created this supplier. So it's revealing your personal information.
Okay. So meaning if let's say in that the real production, right? So actually it's not to enter dummy email address for the supplier, is to enter the actual.
No. In production, we always have to enter actual email address.
Okay. The contact first name and the last name, right? So this is that the main person to contact. But what if that we have multiple, like finance department, the contact name, then that purchasing department, maybe the like that the sales department different supplier, I mean different contact name. I mean, is that only one contact first name and last name can be entered?
So here basically we can enter only one contact name for contact like first name last name. But yeah, if you want to add multiple as well, we can do. But not here inside the user profile. Oh, sorry, inside the supplier profile. So once you
Okay.
create supplier profile, then you can do add it. Not here. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have to give one email address. That's something we'll enter in some time. And in the next, we have the contact phone number. If you want to give contact phone number, you can enter contact phone number. And these are basically the like that customer specific field, like vendor type. This is custom field. So we have to give some value here. Account group, we have to. This is also custom field. So I'll give something NA because this is the mandatory field. And domestic vendor or foreign vendor, I will choose something option here because this is also the custom field. And in the next we have this address information, so we can give any of the address information, like let's say I'm going to add here like JK Street and 24 number I'll give something India address, Bangalore. SIM, I'll add here, Bangalore. Postal code, I'll give like 30. And country, I will choose as India, like this. So this information we have to add like in this address, and here we have to add this region as well. Let me quickly add this region. Whatever region is applicable in your case, you can take that particular region. And now in the last, we have to give the category, region, and business unit. This is something optional field. So what is basically category? Category is nothing. So in SAP MM, we have the material group. Yeah. So what is basically material group? Like based on the material attribute, we are basically grouping that material in the different groups. Right. So same way in the SAP Ariba, we have this commodity code that is called as a category, or you can say the commodity code as well. So if you want to choose any of this category here, we can click on this drop down and you can choose any of the commodity code. So this commodity code is similar to the material group. So you can choose any of the commodity code is applicable, like this supplier is doing the business of these chemicals, including biochemicals, like that you can select here. Same way, if you want to choose any region like service location, that's something also you can choose for the supplier, like in which location the supplier is offering that particular services, you can choose any of the service location. And if you want to choose any of the business unit, that means line of business, that's something also you can choose from the drop down. So whatever options are like whatever information is applicable in your case, that's something you can choose from here. And in the last, we have to click on the submit. So before going to click on the submit, is there any question from anyone?
Have like a company data and the general data, purchasing data, means backup vendor bank account details. We have to fill mandatory SPAN detail, GST number, like that.
No, this information basically we do not have to enter here. So from this process point of view, this is something different in the SAP Ariba. So in Ariba, there is no option of like that company code data, general data, or some other information. That option is not there. Okay, but yeah, we'll talk about that part. We'll discuss. All right. So now what basically we have to do in the next, we have to, so I have given some dummy email address here. I have some dummy email address and I just added this dummy email address. Dummy in the sense, even though this is dummy email address, but at least I will able to access this email address, because after this, like, whatever subsequent process we have to follow. So that basically, like, so all the notification, all the info communication will goes to this particular dummy email address. So I just added this dummy email address here. Now in the next, we have to click on this submit. So what will happen in once you click on the submit, then your request will be submitted for the approval. And like so based on this approval workflow, whatever the approval or release strategy that you have configured in your system, accordingly the system will determine the approval workflow. So as we can see, as a part of the SLP process, like once we created this supplier request, so after that we have to go basically for the approval of the supplier request. So this approval of the supplier request is something optional, or I would say in the production system it's mandatory, but in the demo system that is the optional. So sometimes you may see in some cases you may not have the approval workflow, and in some cases you may see in the demo side you may have the approval workflow as well. So whenever that you will have the approval workflow, so what system will do, system will trigger one notification to the your supplier manager, like you that supervisor, like of you. So who is supervisor, like in your team, he will receive this notification and they have to approve that particular supplier. So once they will receive the notification, so then basically they have to go in that like a supplier request. So whenever the supplier manager, that is basically called as a supplier manager, when the supplier manager, he will receive notification, so he has to log in on the SAP Ariba, and once he will log in, then he has to navigate to this this different tab, click on this more, and they have to choose this option as a supplier management. So they have to click on the supplier management, and once he will click, then system will deliver the list of supplier, like whatever supplier onboarding is going on. So whatever supplier onboarding is in progress, all the supplier information will be available here. So as of now, we can see we have only one supplier that onboarding is going on, that is the HP Corporation. So they have to basically, they will be able to see this particular supplier, then they have to click on the view, and once they will click on the view, and if approval process is configured in your system, they will have the option of the approve and deny here. So in this case, approval workflow is not configured, so that is why we can see it's automatically approved. So automatically approved in the sense, in SAP Ariba there is no approval process. Okay, but in the production system, that the supply manager, they have to review all the information, and after review the information, they will have the two buttons here, approve and deny, and whatever option he want to perform, like if he want to approve, he can approve, or if he want to deny, he can deny as well. Yeah, but in these cases we do not have the any approval process. That is why we can see it is showing as this this is fully approved. Okay, so here we can see, even though the supplier record is approved, the supplier request is fully approved, but we can see still we do not have any supplier number here. Yeah, now to find out the supplier number, that we have to basically click on this view supplier profile. So when we click on this view supplier profile, then we'll have that information about the supplier, and you will able to see, that means basically supplier manager, he will able to see the supplier information. Now we can see this supplier we have created, and what the supplier record number, we can see the supplier record number is this SM vendor ID. So this vendor ID, SM vendor ID, which means like supplier management vendor ID. This is something standard, or if you want to configure the number ranges, like how basically we are configuring number ranges in our SAP MM. So similarly, we will not be able to configure here, and we have to reach out to our Ariba shared service team, that means our Ariba company, and they will basically configure the number range. But in most of the cases, you may see the same number range. You will have the number range starting with the S series. That is the standard out of box. Okay. Now apart from this, we can see the other information as well. Whatever information we added, that's something information we can see here. And also we can see different status, like what is the registration status, not invited, what is the qualification status, not qualified, ERP integration status, not integrated. So if you will have the integration with the backend SAP system, in that case, you have the option to integrate your Ariba solutions, that is SLP solutions, with your backend SAP system, that means with SAP MM, and whatever supplier record, the supplier request you have created here in the SLP, same supplier record will also be available in the backend SAP system. So in that case, if you have the integration, you will have the information here, integrated or not integrated. Okay, apart from that, we can see some other information. These are basically very basic. You can navigate from your side as well. So this will give some additional information. Now in the next, we have the registration here. So if you see the process flow of the SLP, so we have done these two processes, like creating supplier request and approval of the supplier request. Now what we have to do, we have to initiate supplier registration. So whenever we have to initiate any of the supplier registration from the buyer perspective, so we have to come here on this registration step, and here we can see we have the option to invite. We have the one button here to invite. So if you want to invite any of the supplier, to perform the registration on the Ariba, so we can do it from here. But thing is that why basically we have to why we have to send this invitation to any of the supplier, and whatever the benefit that supplier will get, or basically whatever the benefit that buyer will get if he will send this invitation to supplier for the registration. So that's something we'll talk in detail level. So just assume supplier so Ariba network is nothing. Ariba network is just like as the platform of the LinkedIn. Ariba network is nothing, that is just a platform of the LinkedIn. So whenever we have to connect, like let's say for example, we want to connect on the LinkedIn. So what we'll do, and let's say we are new for the LinkedIn as well. So how basically we can connect on the LinkedIn? I will go to the LinkedIn and I'll create my account. That means I have to do some registration. And once I'll create my account, then I will be available on the LinkedIn platform, right? Same process you also have to follow. So once you will also create your account on the LinkedIn, then you will be available, and later we can connect to each other and we can do some chatting or messaging activity over the LinkedIn. So without creating an account, can we connect over the LinkedIn? Of course, no. right? So same way in the SAP Ariba as well. Now in the Ariba, we have the platform of the Ariba network. So from buyer perspective, we are available on the Ariba network, because whenever we purchase this particular solutions, we'll get license of this Ariba network as well. So we are basically available over the Ariba network. But from supplier side, supplier are not available over the Ariba network, right? So in that case, what will happen? So in that case, we have to ask to our supplier, like, since we are migrating from our legacy system to Ariba, please migrate from your side as well to continue our business. And for the migration, or as part of the migration activity, you have to first create your account over the Ariba network. So that is why basically we have to send this registration activity or registration step from the buyer point of view. So how basically we have to send whatever the other information we have to take care, we'll talk about in detail level, because here you may have lots of questions as well. That's something we'll discuss in that tomorrow session. So that's it for today.